Hi, so there's a few things that we need to do to get Docker installed on Windows. So the first thing we're going to do is going to check we've got the right Windows version, and the way you do that is we're going to start, we bring up settings, and what we want to look for is just look about your PC, get information here about the Windows build, and this is towards the middle of the page there, and you want to have version 2004, so that is the May update 2020 2004 or better, and it should be OS build 19041. If you don't have that version, then you need to go on to Windows Update and get the updates to that. Okay, so that's the Windows version. The next thing we need to do is check that we have virtualization enabled, hardware virtualization. The way you check that is bring up Task Manager, which is Control Alt Delete. Press Control Alt Delete, Task Manager comes up, and what you want to look at is performance, and then some way down the performance screen you'll see it says virtualization, and it should show enabled. Now virtualization is not enabled, that is a setting in the BIOS, so get your computer manual out or download it. Quite straightforward to do. Usually what you do is reboot the PC, press F2 or delete depending on the make, and then just set that flag should come up there for you. So that's the Windows preparation stage, just checking we've got the prerequisites there. Now that we've got checked the basic prerequisites there, we need to install the new Windows Subsystem for Linux. Windows Subsystem for Linux has been actually around for a while, but we want version 2. To get to version 2, you first have to set up version 1. It's an optional Windows feature, and the way you get to that is you go to the Start menu, hit your Windows key on the keyboard and press X, Windows X. Get Apps and Features come up, which is in the settings, and we're going to look at optional features, and some way down there at the bottom, let's just move down a bit, you'll see it says related settings, more Windows features. You click on that, a new box comes up with the Windows features which are enabled, and you might see in the documentation that people have been enabling Hyper-V. The difference here is that actually Hyper-V isn't available on the Windows Home version, and it's not now necessary for the Windows Subsystem for Linux. So if you scroll this list down, you'll see Windows Subsystem for Linux. You click that, you say OK, and we're going to pause at that point. It does take a few minutes to install. You probably have to reboot. I will restart in a minute. Okay, so at this point we've checked the Windows version is correct, and we've installed the additional Windows feature, Windows Subsystem for Linux. And what we're going to do now is just check that that WSL version 1 works, and the way we do that is by going to the Microsoft Store in the usual kind of way. Go to the search box, and we're going to install a very small version of Linux which is called Alpine Linux. This is just a test to make sure the thing's working. So there it is across here, Alpine WSL. WSL stands for Windows for Linux. Just double click that, and there's the install button. Press install. It's quite a small file. I think it's like a couple of meg, that's all. It's really quite, 600k, couple of whatever. And as that gets to the end, we can say launch. So let's launch that. and you'll see it brings up a black and white console interface, does some verification, whatever. Now at this point, if things are going to fail, you'd know about it. So we've got to the point where it wants a Unix path name, username, so you can enter whatever you like here. It's worthwhile just going through and just checking that things work. You have to click in the window actually. And we can see it's come up with a prompt. That's as far as we needed to go with this. We can see oh, the passwords didn't match, but never mind, we've started anyway. It's gone to an instance. So we know at this point that the WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux 1 is working. We've started an instance. Next thing to do is to I'll just Control D out of that, is we're going to upgrade to Windows Subsystem for Linux 2. This came out in that 2004 build that we checked for on the Windows Update. So quite simple. There's a download here. I've got it bookmarked there in Chrome. So Microsoft.com WSL2 kernel, and the upgrade says is a 2 minutes read. There's the download. You just double click on that. I've got one saved to the desktop already, so I'll just minimize this and get rid of the store and double click on this upgrade, and it just runs through the regular installer. Don't remember whether this is going to ask us to reboot. There we've got the WSL logo. And is it doing something? Seems to be doing something. Oh, you've got to give it permission. So watch, that's just going on in the background. Say finish. And that's as much as we needed to do at that point. So just pause a second. Oh no, it's not Windows P. Now we've installed WSL2, we just need to make sure that that's the default version. And the way we do that is just through a PowerShell command. So you do the Windows key on your keyboard and X at the same time. And now you want to click on PowerShell admin. This is going to come up with one of those, do you want to allow this to make changes to your system prompts in the background, so it probably doesn't record on this video. So you click on that, you say yes, you do want it to make changes. It comes up with the console window there. This is the standard PowerShell window, and now the command you want is this. You just say WSL set default version 2, say enter, and again comes up straight away. That's great. So we've now got WSL2 installed, set as our default version. Oops. Oh. Okay, so now we've got WSL2 installed as the default version. Now you want to go to the Docker page, and we want to get download the Windows Docker system from Docker. I've done this already, but you just go there, click through, and you want the 64-bit Windows version. So I've saved this already to the desktop. So this is a good size install, and this will come up and do its own checking. It's about 390 meg, so it's a reasonable download. The creation date is actually today, so I'm just waiting for this to come through now. So again, it takes a few seconds to decompress, and then it comes up with another security warning. Do you want to allow this to make changes? And this is a decent size install, so click through, and you'll see lots of stuff appearing, and we'll resume in a second. Actually, when I said resume in a second, I probably meant about 5 minutes, so just be mindful that it does take a little while to do this. You'll see at the end it comes up with the configuration message. It says in enable WS2 features, it's checking those and adds a shortcut to the desktop. We should be able to say OK at that point. And then there's quite a lot of unpacking goes on. Again, this takes another few minutes. So the whole procedure here is going to take you about an hour and a half, I think, something like that, just to get to the point where you've got Windows configured up with Docker, including a couple of reboots, of course. It doesn't take nearly as long on Mac or Linux, but that's just the nature of things. At least it's possible. If, by the way, you get halfway through and there's some error, you are stuck. It's not going to work unless all the intervening parts are installed. So as long as you've got a reasonable amount of memory, you're probably going to need about 20 gig, 30 gig free on the disk, a reasonably modern processor, so you know, if your laptop is within the last 5 years or something like that, should be fine. You would probably get stuck a bit before this stage, so this is all looking quite good at this point. We're not going to be going on this module, we're not going to be going into a lot of details on this. This is just a prerequisite. Might turn out to be useful for other things as well, but it just helps us get to a point where everybody is on a standard platform. Okay, so at this point we've installed Docker desktop and we've restarted the Windows machine. So you'll see there's the Docker desktop icon there, and also if we just look across at the taskbar at the bottom, you'll see there's a little Docker icon showing that the desktop is running. So if you click right on that, you see there's lots of options. We don't need to sign in, you don't need a Docker ID, but if we just click on dashboard, then we should get to see what's actually going on right now. So just look in the middle there. So at this point we've got the Docker dashboard coming up, and you can see we don't have any containers running, so it just says to get started try this, and there's the copy icon. So if we copy that, and remember we can get our PowerShell running by just going down to the Windows key at the background, and we do Alt X, and we bring up Windows PowerShell, and if we just paste the command that it says we try, it will then get the getting started container. If it's not downloaded, it will download it for you. Just to look at what's going on in this command, we have the keyword Docker, which is connects to the application. We have a Docker command there. We'll see more of this on the other videos. And then it says we're going to run getting started, and the P means port, and it's going to run this on port 80. So the container port 80 is mapped to our local port 80. So if we now bring up a web browser, and in this case I've got a Firefox going, and we just look at localhost, and now it tells you about the command you've run and getting started and so on. So you can look through the rest of that page, and from this point on we'll be running standard Docker commands, and where you see the videos talk about the command line, you'll be using PowerShell and typing the commands in here, and we shall be running cross-platform.